So, we meet again, Mr. Bond. Good news, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk about something I just read in Wikipedia. Yeah, somebody's going to talk about Wikipedia. What are the odds? Let me see. Wikipedia. Need to go back there because I was kind of so outraged. As a human being, I got to be outraged. When I decided to go for the article of GAMERGATE, the fascists of Wikipedia, I'm not saying that everybody that is in Wikipedia is a fascist. I have written articles for Wikipedia myself, so obviously not all people there are fascists. However, there's a little group of people, a very aggressive small group of people, other than, of course, if you don't know about it, it's a given fact, not any theory about anything. It's a given fact that some militaries in the world, they have rooms, they have a unit that takes care of Wikipedia articles. Yeah, this is a fact admitted by the very countries. So if you doubt me, check military Wikipedia and see what you get. You'll be amazed to see, especially one of the first states that pop up. But back to the topic. So I decided to read, I wonder what Wikipedia has to say about Gamergate nowadays. And I was appalled. I wasn't really surprised. However, the more I read, the more I just nodded my head in disbelief that other people actually let this article stick. Because, like, if you know anything about manipulation or being manipulative, the article is basically that, at least the beginning of the article. And people usually, they only stick to the first couple of lines in an article and then they fade away. And who would blame them, right? Everybody's busy kind of trying to survive. However, the way that it is framed, narrative, for some people, especially the ideologically driven people, regardless of the side, narrative is everything. So the article Gamergate, and yes, this is a podcast. I don't like showing my face like in public. It bothers me. So one of the signs you are clearly not a narcissist is when you really have a hard time kind of wanting to talk about something and posting your fuckface in the in what you want to talk about. That's a potential sign. I'm not saying you're a narcissist if you do that. However, it is usually a potential sign of narcissism if you want to show your face, if you don't have self-criticism, if you are more interested in your face than in the image proper. Not saying this is the case. Isn't it sad that you have to literally explain every time nowadays that you are speaking about something that you are not implying everyone? Anyway, so this is what they have to say. Flat out it starts, Gamergate. And then there's, between parentheses, harassment campaign. It was not a harassment campaign. And the parenthesis thing is absolutely unnecessary. What are they trying to imply here? They're basically saying that this is what it was. Or They are picking up some alternative Gamergate, if it ever happened, and then that specific Gamergate was a harassment campaign, which was not the case. And I remember really well. And yes, I was there. I checked the whole thing from both sides of the question, and there was corruption, and there were gamers sick and tired of it. And actually, Gamergate won. That's an aspect nobody really talks about. Why? And they should. And it was just beautiful to see the right-wing individuals that nowadays they stay away from Gamergate because, you know, they always buckle. They are afraid of criticism. So this is why they claim they were never a part of it. When Gamergate fell into ridicule because some narcissists, talk about narcissism, some narcissists decided to take advantage of the movement that did not have a centralized it was not a centralized organization. It was really people fed up of being pushed shitty games, and they decided to comply, not to complain. They decided to complain and stand up for themselves and demand more ethics from the gaming journalists, especially what's after gamer sites in YouTube were being shut down by someone, and they didn't know who, but, you know, many gamers are autistic, so they went after finding out who was censoring their sites whenever they criticized corruption in the gaming industry. And they found out, and it happened to be someone who was embedded in this corruption, and they spoke against that person regardless of gender. So here we have today, because nobody, I wouldn't say nobody, people who try to stand up against it, if we go to the talk page of Gamergate, right on the top, this is the talk page for the school discussing improvements on Gamergate harassment. It's not article. This is not a forum for general discussion. Do you see? Like, so give me the general discussion about the article subject. Why did they jump into a talk page for discussing improvements, which they won't improve? They won't improve. They will only improve if that fits the harassment campaign narrative, when Gamergate was not about that. Now, what I would like to know from Wikipedia is, since this article is called Gamergate Harassment Campaign, if there is an article that is just called Gamergate that doesn't have that tag, because this article implies or seems to claim that they are not the main article, that they are just a side article. Because, you know, there's Gamergate, and then there is some alternative reality Gamergate that is harassment campaign. And then we have the jackasses from the arbitration committee, whatever that means, who elected them in the first place, has authorized uninvolved administrators, you see, administrators who are not involved in matter, to impose, newspeak, discretionary sanctions on users who edit pages related to gender-related dispute. Gamergate is not about gender-related disputes. Has nothing to do with that. So how are they putting something that has absolutely nothing to do with that topic, so they can censor, not just censor, discretionary sanction? It means going after because they claim that GAMERGATE is somehow gender-related dispute or controversies or in people associated with them. You mean with GAMERGATE? People associated with GAMERGATE. So they are allowing a bunch of little fascists to go after people who are associated with GAMERGATE based in false premises. It's always false premises with those people, isn't it? Including this article. But this article, my friend, has nothing to do with gender-related dispute, especially shouldn't have harassment campaign attached to it, because it was not. It was not. Something as beautiful to see, because it didn't have a head, it didn't have a dictator, it didn't have a leader, it didn't have a mind viewer, it didn't have any of this. It was really gamers who were just sick and tired. If anything, if you wish to direct it ideologically, if anything, GAMERGATE has been the most anarchistic movement of the last years, of the last decade, I would say. It's a long time ago, isn't it? What, 2014, 2015, something of the sort? Almost 10 years ago. And it was really one of the most, if not the most, anarchistic movement of the last decade, other than Bitcoins. But that's for another topic. So if any ideology should be applied to GAMERGATE, it should be anarchistic, because it had no leadership. Much later on, a bunch of narcissists, a bunch of attention whores, I would put them like that. Actually, some of them are from the left. If you didn't know that, you should. Came forward and tried to claim ownership of GAMERGATE. They tried to claim that they were the heads of GAMERGATE. And at that point, kind of everybody left the movement and left them talking to themselves. So one of those, I wouldn't call them an idiot. I wouldn't call them idiots, because they actually made a career and they are making money out of it. So who is the idiot, huh? One of those opportunists was so full of himself that he literally tried to enter politics, and he got the lesser votes of them all. Like, he was actually shunned for, in his case, what was really previous harassment. But GAMERGATE, no. A proof of that is when those people decided to claim leadership in that movement, the movement collapsed. Everybody left. So obviously there was no leadership there. So bear that in mind. People were just fed up. Okay? And they won. And they got what they wanted. When nowadays, when a journalist has any kind of gaming journalist has any kind of involvement with someone of any nature, may it be financial or sexual, which was one of the examples that people quoted as a motive for GAMERGATE to be, that there was sexual involvement, that there were literally some women, they happened to be women, what if there were men, who literally were raping men. They were self-assumed rape. You understand? They assumed themselves they raped someone. It's not just some made-up nonsense. Who were literally going around like getting laid with married men and all that, to get their game to be published, and not just to be published, to have positive reviews when nobody liked the game. So because they happened to be women, then it became a harassment campaign. So if they were men and they were doing that, then what? Then it wouldn't be a harassment campaign. I don't know. You tell me. I'm confused. I'm trying to understand why is it being called a harassment campaign. Because what it was a demand for ethics in the gaming journalist and gaming industry per se. Something that because some jackasses, as Jim Sterling, decided to take the side of the corrupt, despite claiming to speak in the behalf of the gamers against the big bad corporations, because they decided to stand up for this nonsense. Corporations nowadays, after so long, are coming finally out as abusing their workers. So it all could have been solved back in 2014. So the reason we still have this exploitation and abuse today is thanks to those professional victims taking advantage of the corruption to claim it was about harassment and sexism and whatever is it they used. And not because they were being pointed out for the crimes that they were committing. I mean, one of them, at least as far as I know, just one, was literally, she literally assumed she raped someone. How bad is that? And she is the victim. Why? Why is she the victim? She literally raped a guy. That doesn't make sense. And here in the talk, it goes on. You must not make more than one revert per 24 hours on this article. What's the point? You give people no chance. I didn't write anything there. I'm just checking it now, and I cannot believe. But I have had issues with other articles in Wikipedia where as soon as I wrote, it was just deleted. Then I tried to put it back on. Then somehow I was in problem. Although I was given no explanation why or anything, it was just removed. It was something about history, something about Aristotle, and similar stuff, you understand, and some other things about micronationalism. Nothing related to that before the dirty minds come around. So I'm reading this now, but knowing the mechanics there, that there are some ideologically driven people that somehow entitled, despite their clear ideological bias, are entitled to censor everybody who knows more, who can literally prove that what was posted is a mistake, so you're doing a proper correction. And you're literally posting links and everything. Oh, no, you are deleted, And if you insist, so you must not make more than one revert. But there is no revert. You are just going to block and ban the person, as you say below. I'm going to continue reading on this article. The article has also been protected so that only users with extended confirmed rights, meaning extended confirmed rights, can make edits. So in other words, you are literally, correct me if I'm wrong, but whomever wrote that is literally contradicting itself, because point being, regardless of what you write being correct or not, it will be removed because those extended confirmed rights people, users, they are the only ones who can make edits. So there's no point of you trying to make any edit because only those people are allowed to make edits, right? And then the other absurd article. Do not feed the trolls. You see, here you start to see a pattern, of a certain group of people who are, those who know the internet know, are ideologically driven. The Karens of the internet. Because, if you try to correct one of them Karens, one of those little petty fascists, the first thing that they will say, instead of sticking to the point, they will jump into calling you a troll. which is not the case. You are trying to have a conversation. You say, oh, this is not really like that. This is like this because of this and this and that. Oh, ho, 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 ho. You're a troll. Go away, troll. You know, it's that mental level. You understand? And so they're already saying, do not feed the trolls, assuming that anyone who speaks against the maxims of this article are trolls by default. Therefore, they are excused to not just remove them, but flat out persecute them. I'll get there. This article or its talk page has experienced trolling. Oh, the horror. Oh, the horror. What article or talk page hasn't experienced that? I bet some really boring issues. The subject may be controversial. You bet it is. You bet it is. It's about ethics in gaming and gaming journalism and the gaming industries, that if we were allowed as gamers to have spoken in full back then and exposed the whole mess as it should, we wouldn't be having those issues finally bubbling up because they cannot be kept down, that the companies are literally abusing their workers. And those companies that the people against GAMERGATE protected are coming out as extremely racistic and extremely sexistic. Those companies who funded probably the attack against GAMERGATE are proving themselves to be sexist. What are the odds? To the point, and I'm talking real sexism, not this claim that I find extremely offensive, because I've been there in the beginning of GAMERGATE, not when the little shits tried to claim leadership over GAMERGATE, over a movement that was absolutely anarchistic in essence. And they start trying to attack the literal anarchists who were in GAMERGATE. They started trying to attack them. So the companies that defended against GAMERGATE are coming out to be extremely sexist, to the point that women are literally committing suicide because of misogyny in those companies. But it's the usual thing in politics, that the projection, the people who are in politics, the people who are really, you can know for sure, the ones who are really doing something nasty, because that's what they are calling the people trying to stop them. It's usually like that. What we should do, we should not let those people get away with it. Because what is going on right now here, they're getting away with it. But it is important to keep discussion on a high level. If you do not allow discussion, if you're saying flat out that anyone who says anything against this article will be not just like, will not only have their correction removed, they are blacklisted basically. But it is important to give discussion on a high level. Yeah, so people pointing out that one of the people being defended by this article literally raped a guy and got away with it. Got away with it. That's somehow not at the level of the discussion. No. What is at the level of the discussion apparently is to slander people or slander a whole movement based in ethics as something that it was not. And look, there's plenty of evidence that it was not. To the point, like, that the forums of Gamergate, the Gamergate forums, there were people literally kicking people for using slurs against women or against gender or against, as politically incorrect they were keeping it on a high level. You discussed the topic, you didn't discuss the character. That was the point in the Gamergate forums. So don't come with that. And you know, this arrogance, right? So are you implying that if someone supports Gamergate and tries to correct the fact that it was not a harassment campaign, and because it was not, it's somehow not on a high level? What are you implying? Do not get bogged down in endless debates that don't lead anywhere, assuming that this is the case. If you censor the debate, of course, it will continue to repeat itself, and worse, it will create radicalism. That's what creates radicalism. If you keep censoring, people will, like, if they were in doubt before, they are now sure they don't have any right to speak. Do you understand? By doing this, you are creating dissent. I mean, just look at the whole World War II thing. Once the Germans invaded and they started suppressing the people, did the people just accept it? No, they stood up. They tried to kill German soldiers. And then what happened? Then the Germans started to kill a lot of people, and every time more. Did it calm them down? Did it appease the local population? At the end, the Germans were burning entire towns. And they lost. I mean, needless to say, they lost, because they didn't have any local support at the end. Because people don't like kind of being locked up in a church and set fire on. You understand? And even if it didn't happen to the people, it happened to their families. And nobody really likes that their mother, especially if she was a good mother, maybe if she was a bad mother, but their mother or their children be burned down inside a church. You know, if you're working the field and then you come home and you get the news from a foreign occupation force looking weird at you, saying that your wife and children were burned alive in your local church. That doesn't make and call you undermensch or whatever. That really doesn't appeal to your best senses, does it? And here we are, slowly walking towards that point again. They're creating. Sure, they're not burning churches now. They don't need to. They get people fired. They make you lose your job if you beg to differ with common sense against abuses from authority. Any kind of authority. It doesn't matter. Abuse is still abuse. This is abuse. When they call something that was beautiful as Gamergate, that's abuse against anyone who was there at that time and felt it was a fair cause, because it was, to put an end to the corruption in the gaming industry. Yeah, good luck with that. But it was a fair attempt. And especially when the whole mess started coming out and we got more and more information of what was going on, because once we had the names, we could go after the happenings. And then we realized, oh my God, this is 100 times, 1,000,000 times worse than we thought. That's bad. They're literally raping men, getting away with it. And don't you dare criticize them. That's madness. By the way, people who have proven to lack an absolute sense of morals and self-control. Talk about keeping discussion on a high level, huh? When you start an article by slandering the movement based in ethics, an ethical movement, because it was. And now we can see what is coming out. Now we can see, because we didn't stop it back then, that we could have had, thanks to GAMERGATE. Now it's bubbling up, coming up, that women are committing suicide in the gaming industry because of all the real misogyny and all the abuse that is going on in those industries. Something that GAMERGATE could have stopped. To know when to deny recognition and refer to double PPS. Don't come with this bullshit. Anyone who has tried to edit and correct any article in Wikipedia knows. It's about difference of opinion. There is some moderator or administrator that doesn't agree with your opinion regardless of it being correct, and they just blow you out of the water, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because people of a certain ideological preference have absolute free range in Wikipedia. We should have actually a Wikipedia gate about that, because some of the articles, as the one I'm writing, and this, I'm not reading the article yet, I'm just dazzled at the way that they are trying to pretend to defend themselves from any criticism of the article by posting all those tags. I'm only going through the tags right now. I haven't gone further. The purpose of the stock page is to host ongoing discussion. Look, if you start the article as that, there is no discussion. If you're clearly stating that whomever disagrees with you is a troll and you shouldn't feed the trolls, you are not allowing discussion. You are declaring yourself to be the father of truth, and anyone who disagrees with you is a mythological figure, a mythological evil figure that by default gives you all the right to do whatever you want with them, and they cannot do anything. That's not a discussion. That's a monologue. That's a dictate. You are dictating. That's not a discussion. You're literally saying, I will not allow discussion here. Do you understand? Because this is low level. Discussion is low level. I will just say whatever I want and you have to cope with it. Period. This page is not for... After saying, this purpose of this talk page is to host ongoing discussion amongst interested editors. Okay. So people are not... No, oh yeah, in Wikipedia, people are the editors, right? So, after stating this purpose of this talk page is to host ongoing discussion, they say, this page is not for discussing this talk page itself or any other meta discussion. It's not a meta discussion. So, after saying this page is to host ongoing discussion, this page is not for discussing. Come on. Use the Talk GAMERGATE harassment campaign meta subpage for that. Yeah, because nobody's going to read it. People want to complain here. People want to talk here, not in some meta page that you intentionally drive away from the topic so nobody checks on that anyway. The subpage's creation is an arbitration enforcement action. Enforcement. Don't the weak love this word? They love to use it. They finally were allowed to enforce something in their lives. And unfortunately, as it's usually the case with weak people, they enforce the wrong things. And this is why they're weak. On the reference list is here. Talk GAMERGATE harassment campaign reference. And then it goes, this article must adhere to the biographies of living persons policy, even if it is not a biography. So, the article must adhere to the biographies of even living persons policy, even if it is not a biography. So it's not a biography, but somehow, for whatever reason, it must adhere to biographies of living persons policy. Bullshit. Because it contains material about living persons. Well, then let's be factual about those living persons, right? Did they do anything wrong? Did they rape someone? Took advantage of someone somehow? I think they should be pointed out that that's not right, right? Shouldn't it be pointed out? Shouldn't that be in this article as well? Shouldn't we be talking with a rapist here? About a rapist? Not a potential rapist. If the person admits, it's admission. They are rapists. She just knows that she blowed enough joints, let's put it that word, to shield herself from any criticism, apparently. That is unsourced. Oh, there's plenty of source, but you censor it all. Or poorly, or not you, but what is it? What's the name? The Arbitration Committee. Oh my God. Uninvolved administrators. Oh yes. The people that has nothing to do with the topic can just censor it. And despite the fact that they're absolutely unaware about anything about the topic, they can just go and block it. Oh, delicious. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that speck of democratic place where it's claimed to be said that you can post and correct articles when you have evidence? Just allow a bunch of people with no clue about the topic, a bunch of absolute Dunning-Kruger effect victims, to pretend to have a say in the matter when they don't even know what the matter is about. How can you let that happen? Actually, you should have a tag saying people not related to the topic shouldn't have a say about it because they don't know what they are talking about. Oh, you mad, bro? I'm furious. I'm livid. Because this is an insult to anyone who stood up against corruption in the gaming industry. And now we have the consequences. People died because of this nonsense. Because when gamers stood up against it, they were shut down. To the point that the ethical movement that was Gamergate, and it was an ethical movement, is now tagged in Wikipedia's harassment campaign. To hell with those people. I curse those people who did that, who said that about that movement. I was there. Had nothing to do with that. And it's sickening that those idiots can get away with that. Because anyone who thinks that this movement was about that is either ill-informed, ill-intended, or an absolute idiot. For despite all the evidence to the point that this is an ethical movement, still sticks with the wrong opinion, with the wrong fact. Oh, no fact at all. With the slander, basically. Slander. Gamergate. Harassment campaign. That's slander. And they are clearly protecting the people that are involved in the scandal. Unsourced or poorly sourced. Poorly sourced, my ass. Must be removed immediately. Immediately. Especially if potential is libelous. Define libel. Libel if it is slander. So this article should be filed for harassment, for being libel. For being libelous. This article is libelous. Such material is repeatedly inserted. In fact, in other words, if you keep telling the truth, or if you're concerned about how we portray this article, you will be persecuted. If you're a subject of this article or acting on behalf of one and you need help, please, yeah, right. Sanctions enforcement. All articles related to Gamergate controversy should be called Gamergate ethical movement are subject to discretionary sanctions. See? Censorship, censorship, censorship. Lots of censorship. And you know what? People let them get away with censorship. Now let's go to the article, because there is more on that page about them trying to make excuses to why they should not just censor the people who actually have something to say about the movement. Again, I didn't write anything in that place. I didn't write anything at all. I'm reading it, I believe, like I bumped into it a few times, but only now I'm reading it. And it baffles me. It was not a harassment campaign. Gamergate was an online harassment. No, it was not. It was definitely not. It was an ethical campaign. Initially conducted through the use of hashtag Gamergate. Yeah, because it was an ethical campaign that centered around, I mean, what is the name Gamergate based on? Gamergate is based on Watergate, right? It was a huge scandal that needed to come out. Because in the Watergate scandal, the government was not acting ethically, and neither was the gaming industry, hence Gamergate. That centered around, it didn't center around sexism and anti-progressivism. That has nothing to do with that. It's centered around corruption in the gaming industry. Gamers were sick and tired of having to play games they didn't like, that was portrayed as the biggest thing, because as they found out, and there's plenty of evidence to it. There are videos made with papers, with research, with investigation that proves that there is corruption from the mouth of the very people implied, to the point of rape. This is no joke. But this is how this absurd slander in Wikipedia starts. Around sexism and anti-progressivism. There's nothing about that. Proof to that is that some of the people who claim to have leadership over Gamergate, which is absurd, but still there were those opportunists, they are absolute left. They vote Bernie Sanders. Do you understand? Isn't Bernie Sanders a progressivist? So how can people who claim leadership over Gamergate can be called anti-progressivist if they are absolute, flat-out, radical progressivists themselves? And they are women, by the way. They also happen to be women. So how can they be called sexist? It's nothing about that. And why would Wikipedia portray... This is the kind of nonsense that makes Wikipedia lose any credibility. Regardless of all the great articles Wikipedia has, then they allow this kind of nonsense to stick around. And the kind of bad people, really bad people, because if you if you defend rapists just because you think they don't even side with you, they side with themselves. But if you think that they side with you, if you defend rapists thinking that because they side with you, they're absolutely right, there's something wrong with you. Regardless of gender, because we are talking about a woman who raped a man. So regardless of gender. In video game culture. No. It's about corruption in the industry. That's it. That's what GAMERGATE was about. Beginning in August 2014, it targeted women in the video game industry. No, it targeted corrupt people in the video game industry. It was thanks to some being so blunt about their sexual escapades that we could catch the real corrupt in the industry. But because the whole thing was dumped down by those corrupt men, if we are to, believe in everything women say, by these corrupt men who took advantage of those women, who took advantage of those men. But, the advantage was mutual and hence corruption, right? Because they were so blatant about their corruption, because their product was garbage, absolute garbage, and somehow they were promoted as the top of the top. And here they mention names that I'm not actually, those names are not even their real names. I mean, this is so crazy. This article is so absurd that it doesn't even mention the real name of those people. The people that they are claiming that were harassed are not even having their real names portrayed. They were not born with those names. And feminist media critic, and that is the name of someone who self-declared to be a hack and have learned how to scam people. That there's footage of her speaking in a scammer that was teaching how to scam. She's literally speaking that she took his scam course and she became pretty good at it. I mean, how mad do ideologically driven people have to be to defend this? The harassment, it's an ethical movement, including doxing. No, the people were doxed. The people trying to demand ethics were doxed. Threats of rape. Anyone who threatened rape was removed from GAMERGATE, period. And death threats. Anyone who threatened to kill them was removed from GAMERGATE. Okay, they couldn't participate in the forums. I don't know what they did afterwards, but they were removed from the movement. They were not welcome. GAMERGATE is viewed as a right-wing. Again, the people who try to claim leadership over GAMERGATE, half of them are left-wing, self-assumed to this day. You want a name? I can give you a name so you can go after the person and find out if this is true or not. Since they are not mentioning the real name of the people involved in the corruption, I'm not going to mention the real name, but she's very famous in the internet. In YouTube, she has a channel. Her name is Head. She is left-wing. She votes Bernie Sanders. She's a woman. And she claimed leadership over GAMERGATE. So this alone proves that the initial paragraph calling GAMERGATE sexist and anti-progressivist is a lie, or is at least to keep it in high values or high spirit or whatever it is, high level. It's Wikipedia, my friends. You are not high level. What a pretense. Typical of nerds with the wrong ideas. That alone, that we have a woman who is absurdly left-wing, who votes Bernie Sanders, who is a progressivist, a self-declared progressivist woman, claiming leadership over GAMERGATE, makes the claim that it was centered around sexism and anti-progressivism as bogus, as bonkers, as false. But hey, I read the conditions there. You cannot change that. If you try to change that, we'll change back right away by giving absolute powers to people who are unrelated to this topic, but I'm guessing happen to be part of the socialist clique of Wikipedia, but are completely unaware of what really went on because they don't care, they don't need to. They just go with the narrative. And here we are. You cannot question, you cannot criticize. If you do so, not only you'll be removed from the article, your text will be censored, but we are going to blacklist you, motherfucker. So there you have it. You cannot change that, despite the fact that this is absolutely incorrect and proof is in the pudding. I mean, I'm not the one making claims, you understand? This article is making claims. I'm the one debunking it. I'm merely posting that, hey, if that's not the case, because one of the people who claim to lead GAMERGATE is a woman who happens to be progressivist. So this claim there about harassment campaign has been debunked. Right there, has nothing to do with that. It was an ethical movement. GAMERGATE is viewed as a right-wing backlash against progressivism. Again, one of the leaders, a woman, and a progressivist. So that's not true. GAMERGATE proponents, GAMERGATers, have stated that they were a social movement, which they were. Many anarchists in the movement, for instance. No organized, no centralized command in GAMERGATE. Every gamer was welcome, every gamer was complaining. But they had no leaders or manifesto. So there we have. You don't need one to be a social movement. And statements claiming to represent GAMERGATE have been inconsistent and unfounded. Yeah, that part is true. I just said there was no leadership in GAMERGATE. And you don't need a leadership to be a social movement. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, GAMERGATers falsely accused Quinn. Falsely. They have evidence. She admitted herself that she cheated on her boyfriend with a married man to promote her game. She admitted it. Her own mouth. It's not falsely. Of an unethical relationship with journalist Nathan Grayson and several others that can be proven, that were proven. But you know, you cannot post articles, you cannot post anything here. It will be automatically deleted as soon as possible. I just read the conditions. By people who are unrelated to the topic. You understand? Why? Where from? From which groups, actually, those admins come from? I would really like to know. But I bet it's not clarified. I bet it. Which is part of, you know, how dictatorships work, right? GAMERGATers falsely, no, they rightfully accused her. That's not her real name, by the way. Unethical relationship, more generally claimed there was unethical collusion. Yeah, and it turned out to be true because she admitted to it. But who cares about the facts, right? Between the press and feminists, nobody's giving a damn about feminist progressives. People are more concerned about the corruption. They were concerned about the corruption. As I posted out, there were feminists, pro-GAMERGATers. There were progressives, pro-GAMERGATers. There was plenty of those. These claims were widely dismissed as, and here we come, the arrogance, the ideologically driven arrogance, as trivial, conspiracy theories. Well, look, one thing about theories, but you see, they count in the lack of information that people have, right? A theory can be proven. Now, a hypothesis is just a possibility. A theory is a proven hypothesis. It's something that did happen, or it can be proven to have happened. So if it is a theory, regardless if conspiracy or not, it's a theory. Therefore, the claims that it was not true are debunked by default, because they admitted in this very text, and I bet this is something that will vanish if it ever comes to their ears, because it's a theory. A theory is proven. Therefore, not groundless or unrelated. A theory. You need to have a very elaborated argument to lay off and to pass as a theory. So it's not unrelated, not groundless. It's grounded in fact. Otherwise, it could not be regarded as a theory. But of course, dishonest people count in the apathy or lack of knowledge about terms proper of their victims, right? Hence abuse, or unrelated to actual issues or ethics in gaming. But what happened was a movement based in ethics, and there is no way around that. Actually, the right wings nowadays, they try to switch. They are the ones actually using this narrative to get back at the people from the left who supported that movement. Don't you get it? The people of the right wingers, are the ones helping to attack GAMERGATE today, because they believe it can have, in that way, they get to attack the people of the left who supported the movement. I mean, it's just, if you're wondering why the right-wingers won the 2016 meme wars, this is why. Because the right-wingers, they're just shifting gears, while the left-wingers keep on the same track. The other ones, they just shifted their gears and use it against the people of the left. This is what is happening here. Nowadays, if you go to the right-wing places in the internet and you mention GAMERGATE, they will twist their noses and they will use this very article here to make fun of the people of the left who supported GAMERGATE. GAMERGATE supporters have frequently denied the harassment took place. They don't know about it, and they try to stop any possible action that might lead to that conclusion. Or falsely claimed. Look, all they said can be proven, and is proven if you allow them to literally post the evidence, which on the talk page you are clearly stating that you won't, because you know it might infringe somehow in the rights of people related to the events. Then you would clearly see, hey, okay, they did that. Okay, that person was in a cyber cafe with her friends, and we can prove it, we have pictures. They were taking pictures of themselves, posting harassment, that they were making up harassment against the person while the person was there with them, and they were smiling and drinking and having fun while they were pretending to attack the person who
was with them because they were close friends. Do you understand? And there's evidence because they got the pictures. Those very people posted the pictures because they know that 10 years from now nobody would give a damn. Nobody would care, and they would be able to get away with it if they just kept on controlling articles as these. I wonder how many BJs they gave to the people who are not letting anybody literally post facts and evidence about what really happened, so they can call it whatever they want to call it. And it saddens me that we don't class action lawsuit Wikipedia, if we have to change this very biased, slanderous, talk about libellous text or article. It's a disgrace that people like that shine here. It's a disgrace. You know what? They deserve. GamerGaters deserve. If they let that happen, they surely deserve. It's just a little group of people. Guess they deserve it. Have frequently denied the harassment because they weren't part of it. If there was any harassment, they weren't part of it. There is actually evidence that the people harassing were literally with the people they were harassing just to claim to be victims, so they could profit from it, and they profited a lot. Gamergate is described as a culture war over cultural diversification, artistic recognition, social criticism in video games, and the social identity of gamers. Social identity? What in the world does that mean? Social identity. I know identity. Social identity. What does that even mean? I need to check some political dictionary to know what that means. I have no clue. And I know a lot about politics. But social identity, what is that? Like, sure, you can tell me what you think social identity is, but what does that actually mean in the context described here by those people? Because might be the case that they are just making up new language as they go along, right? They need to specify what that means. But because all the rest is not true, has nothing to do with that. It's about ethics in the gaming industry. That because Gamergate was destroyed, or not destroyed, they fulfilled their purpose. Because Gamergate fulfilled its purpose and then disbanded because they had fulfilled their purpose, that was to call out and to demand that journalists, when they do an article about something, that they come out and say that if they have been paid by the people they're talking about, and they have personal relations with the people that they are writing an article about. It doesn't have to be detailed, but by knowing that they have either, let's say, friendship with the people that they're talking about, that are pumping out a horrible game, or financial, they received some benefits from that, either financial or something, or affective. It would be nice to know, because then, as an intelligent person that can cope with reasons, you can know, okay, he's writing an article, a very positive article about this game, but he also said that they are close friends, or that he has been paid to speak about this, So I can therefore consider not buying this game because it might be based in bias, or at least to check further about this game before I buy, and not just buy because I believe on what he's telling me flat out. Do you understand? That was the whole point of Gamergate. Sounds complicated, but it isn't. You know? It's about not being biased when you are a gaming journalist or related to the industry. At least to say, look, we are close friends and I like that person, so this is why I decided to talk about this game. Okay, I know now. Okay, now I know the person is fond of the other person, so there might be some bias there. Maybe I should check a little more, just a little more, before I buy that game. Might be crap, but the friend is trying to help the other friend. I understand, regardless. I don't care about details. Too much, man. Too much. Don't want to know. I just want to know if you have any kind of relationship with that person. If you have, then I'd say that there might be, I'm not saying it is, there might be some bias. Therefore, I should check further before I'm 100% sure I should waste $60 or whatever it is into buying this if it turns to be garbage just because you like the person. You understand? I don't care how you like the person, how the person like you, or even if you like each other, but I know that you two know each other well and you are doing it because of that. Okay, I got it. Thank you very much. So it's your opinion. It's not maybe because the game is really good. So we get it. Nice. That's all Gamergate really asked for. And that's what Gamergate got. And this is why, and we were starting to speculate about the nature of the beast. And this is why they started with this whole, oh, it's sexism, it's misogyny, that now, because Gamergate disbanded when they got what they really wanted, that was disclosure to know, so they wouldn't waste money in some shit, right? Because who likes doing that, right? To the point, Gamergate was so successful in the ethical campaign that even Steam, one of the biggest corporations about gaming that there is, decided to offer refund. Do you understand how big this was? Talk about, oh, misogyny. So what a coincidence that even Steam offered refund against many of those companies. They were livid, but they had to bite the bullet because Steam made them a lot of money. And gamers even got that. Thanks to Gamergate, you can have discounts on Steam. Not discounts, my bad. You can have a refund in Steam that I used at least 2 times since I have been a member of Steam, and I'm very thankful that I did, because there were some massive issues. And if you don't do that, if you're not even allowed refund, because you are not, do you understand why Gamergate was necessary? Because there was a point that if you bought a game, you had to take it if you bought it online. There was no possibility of refund. And Gamergate also opened that gap, exposed this. And thanks to Gamergate, you can now have refunds online, now enforced by the European Union even. So actually, European Union extended this push from Gamergate that now we have 14 days to demand any kind of refund. If, of course, only if you happen to live in Europe. So good luck, US. What you have today is not capitalism, by the way, US, if you didn't know that. So now you know. You are not living under capitalism nowadays in the US. It was an ethical movement.
Gamergate led figures both inside and outside the gaming industry to focus on methods of addressing online. No, it made them focus on methods of being ethical on not having their products bought, and not just not having their products bought, but their companies' names and the names of the people involved in this bad practice of exploitation of gamers to back out. We managed. We didn't kill off. Am I saying we? Are you crazy? Gamergate did not manage to just like. Maybe Gamergate was not the one who bankrupted officially, like who gave the mercy shot to Gawker. But Gamergate was definitely the responsible for their bankruptcy. It was really the lawsuit from Hulk Hogan, or however his name is, brother, that led to the Gawker. Gawker was an umbrella corporation responsible for gathering funds to funding several gaming journalist sites. They had to file for bankruptcy after Gamergate or during Gamergate because they were the responsible for most of the attacks against Gamergate because they were getting money from those big companies or from companies to promote their products, their shitty projects, their lousy, unfinished, or just flat out bad games as great games, worthy your money, pay it now, and Gamergate definitely bankrupted them. They had to file for bankruptcy because of the Hulk Hogan slander, but they didn't have money to continue because of Gamergate. Because gamers were starting to contact companies and say, look, this company is saying this about us. Do you really want to fund a company that says that about their customers? And that's what happened. And this is why Gawker is no more. So, yeah. And here they are, like they say that they are not going to mention people, but they sure wrote an extensive article about who they claim to be a target. So no, she could have been a hero of, well, not a hero. She literally raped a guy, but the targets of her. Fuck that. And the third one, the opportunist, flat out nut job opportunist. Oh my god. Coordination of harassment. Oh no. Oh, this is so bad. And remember, you cannot delete, you cannot change, you cannot. And again, I haven't touched this with a stick. Sad puppies. Oh my god, there is so much slander here. Social, cultural, and political impact. I can tell you, the opportunists got away with it. The rapists, the lunatics, the sexists, the homophobes, they got away with it. And they got away with it because they started saying lies about Gamergate, and since Gamergate got what they wanted, that basically was about ethics, so they disbanded, especially when the opportunists started to claim that they had the leadership over, then they disbanded. The impact was like they could have carried on. They could have gone on to literally eliminate real if
if some certain people, key people, had, instead of trying to defend the bad apples, the corrupt, they had sided with Gamergate proper, today, like, we would have solved the sexism issue in the industry as well. But since we got the basis of what we wanted before a long, extensive media campaign started against Gamergate, we just disbanded. Am I saying we? No, how could I? Its main purpose had been achieved. Gamergate could have continued. In 2015, it would have ended the sexist aspects of the industry, if it could have continued. Because again, there were literally women, progressive women, claiming leadership over Gamergate. Do you understand? And something that some people don't talk about, Not Your Shield, black community driven, saying that they were sick and tired. It was a sub movement that was gaining power. We could have also solved the racial issue in the whole industry and beyond. But poor guy that started Not Your Shield, because and the reason that racism is not also described in that slander is because there was Not Your Shield, that were the black gamer community that started protesting, because they tried to call Gamergate a racial racistic movement. But then the black gaming community came out and say, hey, Not Your Shield, don't use this as and you know what happened to the guy who created Not Your Shield? A black kid, if that is relevant. It is for them, apparently. I'm just saying that so you can have an idea of how bad it could have been. They, like those people that here in this article are defended as alleged victims, and that I cannot agree, they destroyed the career of that kid. They got him fired. They got him kicked out of his studies. They ruined him. They ruined a guy from an ethnic minority because he dared say, don't use me as your shield. I'm not your shield. What you are doing is wrong, and I stand with my fellow gamers in this matter as well. They destroyed him and called him off, Uncle Tom and all those things. Yeah. So somehow this is not even mentioned here. Isn't that odd? Because I remember that as well. Look, this article is a disgrace. It's a propaganda piece. It's slander. It's absolutely incorrect. Only mentions to Gamergate supporters being less interested in those sexism things. No, it's just trying to reinforce a narrative that wasn't true, that wasn't factual in any way. Oh, here it comes. Gamergate has virulent strains and violent sentiments of homophobia. Many gamers, if people don't know, are homosexuals, are flat out transsexual. So no. Transphobia, not true. Anti-Semitism, not true. Racism, I just mentioned an example. Not Your Shield. Hashtag Not Your Shield. Check that. No, not even mentioned. A neo-Nazism. Okay. Put a stop to that. Some figures. In fact, Again, I just mentioned, if you go to the right-wing neo-Nazi, the ones who promote that, and actually many of them do that more to be edgy than actually being. One of them I know for sure, because he was married to like most of them seem to be odd coincidences, married to some ethnical minorities that Nazism was severely against. It's definitely not that. It's horrifying. They actually are against Gamergate today. So some figures and tactics associated with Gamergate went on to become components of the alt-right, who officially shuns Gamergate today. They make fun of the people involved in Gamergate. So, but again, what are facts, right? Do they matter for this article? Obviously don't. Which featured in Queen campaign roped well-meaning people who cared about ethics into a pre-existing hate mob. That's slander, and urged industry publishers and developers to condemn the hashtag. Yeah, so this is why now journalists have to come out if they have any kind of relationship with a game they are going to talk about, and they have to say it, because if they don't, they suffer a massive voting with our pockets, because thanks to Gamergate we can now demand refund of online bought games. Okay, and that's it. Regardless what they want to insult people, try to shame, and always try to shame. When you're wrong, you always try to shame the other, isn't it? It's a disgrace. This article is a disgrace. To provide support group and harass development, begin discussion with the FBI to help investigate online harassment of game developers. Oh my God. Interview on Comedy Center, the Colbert Report. Yeah, what a boot leaking that was. Women are targeted. You targeted women. I mean, oh, it's just so insane. This article is an extensive slander campaign. And you know what? People who participated in Gamergate should really come forward. All the people. Because that was something you should have been proud of. This movement, this ethics movement. But no, because they framed it. Oh, see? I mean, this is so dishonest, if you know a little about law at least, because it already frames. So if one day, you understand, this is so wicked, because if one day it comes out, like truth comes out, or somebody or some group or whatever managed to disprove this article, and who knows, just as I said, legally class lawsuit the whole people who are behind slandering the movement, they can say, oh, but we were not talking about Gamergate per se. We were talking about what we believe to be a harassment campaign. So this page is not really about Gamergate proper. It's about the harassment that possibly went on during Gamergate. And that's how they're going to frame this and try to get away. But again, if there will be enough people who stand up against that, because they are being insulted, it can also go the other direction. It can also go towards the direction of they literally get away with actually calling FBI, and I'm pretty sure the FBI have more important things to do than to deal with people demanding ethics online, right? Do you agree? Especially because probably some people in the FBI have been part of Gamergate. But that's for another topic. As hashtag I need diverse games. Hey, what happened to hashtag not your shield? They are not mentioned here. Oh, this is so hateful. You know, this article is hateful because it's not true. And it's intended, it's all developed, it's extensive. Lies and slander against anyone who had anything to do with Gamergate. And imagine, just imagine if one day it goes the other way and people who participated in Gamergate actually are chased down by authorities because those corrupt people managed to get away with their abuse. And they did. They did. They are still out there. They declare themselves they have gone as far as to rape someone and they can get away with it. So if they can get away with rape, they can get away with that kind of article. Apparently, we still have a lot of corruption. Not just in gaming, but apparently in Wikipedia. Would be funny to have a Wikigate. Maybe not, because I'm pretty sure there would be a lot of really ugly, creepy people. And who wants to see that? Yeah, I think the only reason that people don't complain about this is because they just don't want to see all the creep, all the cringe that comes out of the other side. Could be that. Jesus, man. And they are getting money out of that. Pledge more than 300 million to help support. Oh, they are getting big money. Why stop, right? They are getting paid. What people from Gamergate got was recognition that there was abuse and the industry changing after Gawker went down the hill because gamers were so mad that they were being insulted by the very corrupt people that they managed to bankrupt the main company behind the slander. And that was a clear message for everyone to better do what the gamers are telling, or we are in deep trouble, we are next. So this is why they changed the policies. This is why now we have transparency in the gaming industry, that they have to come out, and thanks to Gamergate, now people who work in the gaming industry are finally coming out, despite all the slander, to state all the dirt that has been going on. Gamergate, if it didn't destroy the corrupt industry, it definitely ruined its foundations. It left the door wide open. It tore down the door of the corrupt. So now people are starting to realize they can actually get out of their captivity in the gaming industry. And that's thanks to Gamergate, regardless of what they write about it. But this, for anyone who has participated in the movement, who remembers, who knows what it was about, this is trash. This is up to the top of being sued by slander, you know. Anyone who participated in Gamergate should sue Wikipedia for allowing this kind of trash to be, because they are literally calling you the most despicable things that they possibly can, and somehow they can get away with it. It's absurd that they can get away with this kind of trash, this kind of slander, where they literally state in the talk page that they will not allow any dissent, because they will start from the assumption that any disagreement is an open attack, a personal attack, rather than the facts that truly happened. And therefore, people unrelated administrators unrelated to this topic can somehow meddle in it, to the point that they changed Gamergate into a Gamergate harassment campaign. Again, all this takes to change that is enough gamers who want to change this. And no, writing in the article won't work, because as it's stated in the article, they won't let you through. They won't allow any discussion, despite the fact that they are about discussing the topic. They won't allow discussion. They said it themselves. It's right there. They wrote it. Now, I don't know what you understand of it. For me, it's pretty clear what I mean by it. You know, and then they just go on with this absurd thing. It's about, oh, they're against progressivism. But how? There were literally people, women, progressive women claiming to be Gamergaters. Not just to be Gamergaters, being leadership of Gamergate, what, as it is known, has no leadership. And therefore, somehow they can come and say, oh, because it had no leadership, it was not a social movement. Please define social movement. Isn't a social movement about people who had enough and stand up against the powers that are against the establishment? Isn't that what it is about? A social movement. Suddenly it's not. Why? Because you say so. Now let's see, because they link social movement right here. Let's see how they define. A social movement is a loosely organized effort by a large group of people to achieve a particular goal, typically a social or political one. Now, back to what they said that Gamergate was not. Gamergate is viewed as a right-wing backlash against progressive. What's not true? I already established. Sean Head, check her YouTube channel if you think that she's a man who happens to be a right-wing. I'm going to laugh at your face so hard after, if you dare, listening to what she has to say, especially the videos where she clearly states that she's voting and why she's voting for Bernie Sanders and why she thinks Trump is a creep and all that. Gamergate proponents, Gamergaters, have stated that they were a social movement, but they had no leaders or manifesto, and statements claiming to represent Gamergate have been inconsistent and unfounded. Again, returning to their Wikipedia's very definition in the same paragraph, linked social movement. A social movement is a loosely organized effort, just like Gamergate, by a large group of people, just like Gamergate, to achieve a particular goal, just like Gamergate, typically a social or political one. Just like Gamergate, this might be to carry out, resist, or undo a social change. In this case, fighting corruption, just like Gamergate. It's a type of group action and may involve individuals, organizations, or both, just like Gamergate. Hashtag not your shield. Definitions of the term are slightly varied, but as the Wikipedia definition of a social movement states, is just like Gamergate. So Gamergate was indeed a social movement, despite this slender of an article saying it isn't, despite the fact that the very definition they link into states that Gamergate is per their definition, a social movement. So here we are. That's plenty of evidence. You can check it for yourself if you doubt me, that there's plenty of evidence that the article, if anything, is contradictive. So what does that mean? It means that what it states, it disproves itself. It disproves itself in its very statements, in its very claims. It actually disproves itself. So it's a mess. It's inconsistent. It is untrue by its very definition.
It's a fucking lie, in other words. And it saddens me that they get away with it. But again, they only get away with it if nobody cares, if nobody does anything. And by the way, the right-wingers that he has so criticized, they side with the people today criticizing Gamergate. Okay? Why? Because there's a lot of left-wingers that supported Gamergate for very good reason. Because of the corruption in the gaming industry. It has nothing to do with this bullshit that they are trying. As I just proved, the article disproves itself, okay? By the very definitions that they post themselves are disproving what they are claiming. So I don't even need to prove anything. Moreover, it's burden of proof case here. They are making the claims. And they're disproving themselves. Like, I don't even need to do any effort to disprove them. They self-disprove. I just need to point it all out. And for those who know where I came with that quote, know what I'm talking about. I just need to point it all out. So that's what I'm doing. This article is highly dishonest and disproves itself. So, and it saddens me that it's allowed to escape proper dealing with. So, yeah. Good news, everyone. That's what you get.